Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tip of the Ice-Burgh podcast, brought to you as always by InsideThePenguins.com, an affiliate of the Hockey News. My name is Nick Brlansky, and I'll be your host today and always. And as always, I am joined by Nick Horwat. Well, draft day is over, at least draft day 1. We have draft day 2 starting up here in about 2 hours and 21 minutes on June 29th. But we have a lot to talk about today because the Pittsburgh Penguins addressed both prongs of that, quote, two-pronged approach from Kyle Dubas on the opening day of the NHL draft. He addressed the present and he addressed the future. Because the present is closer and obviously something that's going to be more on the topic of conversation, we're going to start there. Reilly Smith, acquired from the Vegas Golden Knights for a third-round pick in 2024. The pick was originally acquired from Vegas for the Bluger trade. So one general manager opened this deal, the other general manager closed this deal. A weird dichotomy of scale with the Pittsburgh Penguins utilizing the third-round pick that they just acquired 2 months ago from the same team to pick up, as you mentioned on Tuesday, one of their original 6 Golden Misfits. Reilly Smith, at 32 years old, has 2 years remaining on his current contract at $5 million per year. He scored 26 goals last season and 56 points, and then also scored 14 points in 22 games en route to the Stanley Cup. Horwat, what are your initial thoughts on this acquisition?
My initial thoughts were this is a solid deal, especially it's a good piece of business considering the return of just a third round pick, not even this year, next year. Um, I mean, sure, we don't put a ton of stock into the magic beans that is the draft, but the fact that we have 4 picks remaining in this draft after day 1 for the next 6 rounds.
They have 5.
5? Am I miscounting here?
They have a
1?
third, a fifth, a sixth, and 2 sevenths.
I am miscounting. All right, but yes, still, we have 5 picks remaining in the next 6 rounds. It's still not a lot. It's still not a lot. Still not the number. It's still not the number of 6. It is 5. And
especially when you have only one selection between rounds 2 and 4.
yeah, and it's not even your own pick. It's a Devils pick that was deeper than what your third round selection could have been. It's interesting. Regardless, it's a good piece of business for Dubas to not trade this year's slim pickings already and go into next year and not even a first or second round pick. It's a deep third round pick that for a player like that, whenever I said on the last recording that it would be hard to pry away a guy like Reilly Smith, I meant that. I thought it would be. I still think it's interesting that they let it go for a third round pick next season. So be it. They got their cup. Who cares, right? It was a good piece of business on Dubas, and we'll see how it goes from there. That does not mean the door is shut on Jason Zucker yet either.
Yeah, which is very, very strange because, I mean, a couple things happened when this trade went down. First and foremost, literally less than an hour later, the Vegas Golden Knights signed Ivan Barbashev to a deal that takes up, coincidentally, exactly as much cap space as Reilly Smith. So out goes one, in comes another for the Vegas Golden Knights. And for the Pittsburgh Penguins, everybody, including me, I went on with Hunter Hodes and locked on Penguins almost right after the trade went down and said, okay, I guess this closes the door on Jason Zucker. I mean, it's not a 1-for-1 exact, like, done deal, but it seems as if when you bring in a guy that's making $5 million, that plays the same position, that covers a little bit more ground than Jason Zucker does when you think about the fact that he plays on the penalty kill a lot more than Jason Zucker ever did. He brings a different dimension to the Pittsburgh Penguins top 6 because he is a very good off the rush and transition player, whereas Zucker was more of an in zone, grind you down, forecheck, back check, front of the net kind of guy. It kind of seemed like, okay, it's likely that the Pittsburgh Penguins have gotten to the point where they're probably not going to sign back Jason Zucker, especially considering the rumor currently is that he's looking for something around the 5x5 range, which the Penguins just can't sign that here. They only have $15 million in cap space right now. And if you use $5 million of that to sign Jason Zucker, you have $10 million left. You need to do something about your defense. You need a starting goaltender, right? Potentially even a backup. Who knows what you do with Casey DeSmith? So it feels as if the door was closed on Jason Zucker, but then both Mike Sullivan and Kyle Dubas adamant on draft night that the Reilly deal does not close the door on Jason Zucker, and it was something that just came up on draft week. They saw the price and they said, we can't pass up that opportunity. And we've seen it around the league this week. There's a lot of players that are going for a lot less than you would ever expect them to.
Yeah, like I said, it's especially one of the original 6 from Vegas. It's just interesting to me. And yeah, the fact that it doesn't close the door on Zucker, sure, maybe that's just good PR coming from Sullivan and Dubas, but either way, it's not like we've seen a ton of it already. There's a ton of teams out there just saying, yeah, we're not re-signing these guys. We're not re-signing this person, that person. We're not RF8. We're not giving qualifying offers to this guy, this guy. The Penguins did. I mean, they usually don't do that, but they didn't in this particular situation and zeroed in on Zucker with this. It's obviously Tristan Jarry and Brian Dumont are other guys that are upcoming UFAs that maybe the team would consider re-signing, but no, the focus has been on Zucker, especially in the responses from, uh, Sullivan and Dubas. Have there been small mentions of Jarry? Sure, he's your starting goalie. That's going to be a little talk there. There's been zero talk of Brian Dumont, so that one has sailed. Guess
Yeah,
so.
for good reason.
Yeah, and honestly, heading into the season, I think we all kind of knew the writing was on the wall. But yeah, it's they have a lot of faith that Zucker's going to get re-signed here, and I mean, I don't hate $5 million, but again, you have to probably move. You have to figure out the Granlund contract situation then.
Mm-hmm.
But 5 years seems a touch lengthy for someone who, like, it's not. 5 years has nothing to do with his age because 31 you would normally sign someone to 5 years for. It is just the hard miles he's put on, and that's exactly why 5 years trips me up a little. If anything, Reilly Smith is a more dependable, less injury prone Jason Zucker, which is huge.
Much less injury prone. And that to me is one of the bigger things. I mean, also, yes, you might sign somebody at 31 for 5 years and basically eat up the rest of their career, but also $5 million at 5 years for a guy that, yes, is coming off of a really good season, second best season statistically of his entire career for Jason Zucker. But you mentioned it there. Injury prone, does not play special teams very often. I mean, he's a power play 2 guy for the most part. Is that really somebody you want to net up $5 million for 5 years when you already, and that's the thing, it's not in a vacuum. You are already paying Crosby, Malkin, Gensel, Raquel, Rust in that price range. Do you really want to pay another guy over the age of 30 that much for that long is the question. So if it's 5 years at $5 million for an injury-prone Jason Zucker at the age of 31, or 2 years at $5 million for a habitually healthy Reilly Smith at 32 years old, you're going to take the habitually healthy guy. You know, the best ability is availability. That's the most overused term in sports media over the past couple of seasons. Everybody uses it because it rings true, and it is used in so many different scenarios. So I do like the acquisition. And honestly, when you get it for free, it makes it that much better. I did see a couple people, and I'm not trying to bash on anybody that went out there and said this. It's obviously an easy one-to-one comparison to make because it's the last 2 trades that the Pittsburgh Penguins have made, if you take out the Dmitry Kulikov deal. Mikhail Granlund, the Penguins get for 2 second-round picks at the NHL draft. Reilly Smith, they get for 1 third-round pick. They both cost the same amount of money, so I see why the comparisons are being drawn, but you have to recognize the fact that it is a matter of timing. At the trade deadline, prices were nowhere near as low as prices are right now. Teams are trying to open up space to sign players. We saw it yesterday, literally 1 for 1 within 5 seconds of each other. Reilly Smith was traded. That way, they can re-sign Ivan Barbashev. So the prices are that much lower. So yes, I get the need to bash the general manager who shall not be named because he overpaid for a guy that the Penguins are trying to get rid of, whereas the first move of the next general manager, the first trade of the next general manager is to acquire a guy on a high value deal. It's not necessarily a 1-for-1 scenario.
No, it's not. But you're right. You can see how people would say that, especially if you just pull up the cap friendly. I mean, they have similar contracts. They're Both just a hair over 30, making $5 million for the next 2 seasons. The only difference is Riley Smith has that modified no trade clause thrown in there, which is
Mhm.
interesting. Good to know we weren't on that, I guess.
I think
Um,
his was like 8-team no trade list, so it was probably at this stage of his career, he probably just wants to keep winning. So
yeah.
it's probably a lot
Don't
of teams that aren't gonna be close to winning,
don't send me to Canada or Florida. Thank you. Uh,
or Arizona.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and I just threw Florida in there because that was his former team, and I don't know. Anyway, yeah, it's you can see how that comparison will get drawn. There's just two very similar contracts, especially looking at it just on paper, on
Mhm.
cap friendly, whatever you want to use. It's right there. I mean, now the Penguins are sitting with 3 contracts at exactly $5 million. A fourth one, if you count Brian Rust's 5.125. Something's got to get moved there. I think it just has to with the amount of cap space we have left. It'll fill up quickly. Yeah, it's a
Mhm.
lot. It's nice having $15 million worth of space. Penguins aren't
Mhm.
used to that, but that'll fill up quickly, especially if you're trying to re-sign Jason Zucker to maybe what he wants, or finding a goalie that wants north of $8 to $9 million in Connor Hellebuck. But that'd be next year's
Yeah.
problem. But
I
still,
I feel like that's out the window.
yeah, with that at that number, absolutely.
Unless, of course, unless we saw from Frank Saravalli yesterday from the Daily Faceoff, he put out his trade targets article. Jeff Petrie has made his way onto that list.
That's true too.
Rumors were that the Pittsburgh Penguins and Kyle Dubas were attempting to find a suitor for Jeff Petrie early this week at the NHL draft. Obviously, the market is not high on Jeff Petrie at the moment, but that's news there. Jeff Petrie is on the trade block.
Could it not only is he on the trade block, it could net the Penguins a Capo Kakinen in return. Apparently, that's
You're buying low on that prospect. I'll tell you that much.
you are. I think there's it's he also kind of fits the kind of goalie Kyle Dubas likes going for. That
Yeah.
not your casual starter, but someone that you take a flyer on. Next thing you know, they're an all-star. Which I mean, to be fair, was Jari until about this past season. So yeah, it's Jeff Petrie could be on the block, could be a return for Capo Kakinen. We'll see where all that goes. I'm shocked someone's willing to take on Jeff Petrie, but I'm not shocked to find out it was one of the teams like San Jose that um, isn't ready to win yet.
Yeah, well, they're not also willing to take on Jeff Petrie just yet. The
Yeah,
trade isn't done. It'd be nice to open up that much cap space, and I think Saravalli said the general consensus is Jeff Petrie has slowed down considerably from his
yeah.
original or from where he was before. But it's going to be interesting, obviously, seeing that he's on the trade block. I want to wrap things up with Reilly Smith here before we move over to the next segment and talk a little bit about Brayden Yager, the Penguins' first round selection in last night's draft. But with Reilly Smith, I was a little surprised simply because coming into this offseason, we knew that, hey, if Jason Zucker doesn't come back, you have to fill that role at second line left wing. But how high was it on the list of priorities? It really wasn't. I mean, the defense and the goaltending, before we even get into the bottom six and the forward side of things, the defense and the goaltending were both much more pressing needs for the Pittsburgh Penguins. So a little surprising in that aspect that the Penguins went with this. But again, when you see the price, you gotta jump at the time, because if you wouldn't have jumped on that, somebody else would have taken it. If they had the cap space, somebody else would have taken that deal in a heartbeat. So I will say this. The thing with Reilly Smith is he checks a lot of the boxes I asked for that second line left wing. I believe you echoed a lot of the sentiments that I said, or probably even mentioned it before I did in some of these instances. You want a guy that can fill that role,
Mhm.
that can move up and down the lineup if need be, right? If somebody gets hot, like a Valtteri Pustin, Reilly Smith can be a third liner. He showed that he could do it this season with the Vegas Golden Knights at times. He also plays the penalty kill. Get him on the penalty kill instead of Brian Rust, because Reilly Smith showed this year that he can play on the penalty kill and still produce at a high level offensively. Brian Rust struggled with that last season. So if you can get Smith to take Brian Rust's spot on the penalty kill, you might be able to not only bring in Smith, who's going to be more of a consistent opportunity to get to that 25 to 30 range that Jason Zucker did last season, but you also potentially boost Brian Rust on the other side of that line and give him more of an offensive upside heading into 2023-24, which is, at the end of the day, a 2-for-1 in that aspect is very good for the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yep. Absolutely. It's good. It's a deal that should work out. There's no reason why it won't, barring obviously just all circumstances. But it should work out. It was a low cost. You can't not take that opportunity. Cup
Mhm.
champion too. He's got that pedigree to bring with him. Uh, it's a different cup champion in the room than the guys that have been here, right?
Mhm.
We don't usually get that sort of thing either. It is we have our champions. Let's bring in new guys to learn from their experience. This is a guy who's already been there. Recently, he's been there. He's probably still hungover from the parade. That's how recently he's been there, and he's going to have that experience to bring in. And you don't want to say it's a veteran leadership move either, but that inches his way into it. At least in a year or two, it will.
Yeah, and I'll just say this also. The Vegas Golden Knights fleeced a lot of teams in the expansion draft. The Pittsburgh Penguins knowingly were going to give up Marc-Andre Fleury, but it's nice for the Pittsburgh Penguins to get back a little bit there. They got
Mhm.
back something for basically free, and it's nice to steal something back from the Vegas Golden Knights and something that a lot of the fans in Vegas that I saw, this hit them hard a lot. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, they liked Nate Schmidt. Obviously, they liked Marc-Andre Fleury, but seeing them lose Reilly Smith, a lot of kind words for Reilly Smith. So it seems like he was a fan favorite in Vegas. I would not be surprised if he becomes a fan favorite in Pittsburgh as well. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, let's look to the draft and talk a little bit about Brayden Yager. Welcome back to the Tip of the Ice-Burgh podcast, brought to you as always by Inside the Penguins, an affiliate of the Hockey News. Horwat, the first round of the 2023 NHL draft is in the books. The second round begins in just about 2 hours. Penguins not only hold on to the 14th overall selection, but they draft Brayden Yager out of the Moose Jaw Warriors of the WHL. He was on the Penguins' radar from early on. He was one of the first names that we heard that was rumored to have had dinner with the team that was back at the NHL Combine. You texted me last night and said, man, I saw this coming from a mile away. How surprised were you? Apparently not very, that the Penguins ended up going with Brayden Yager at 14.
Yeah, in the moments leading up to the pick, I can just remember we were tossing names at each other. I had thrown you Gabe Perreault and
Mm-hmm.
Zach Benson, who ended up going the pick before anyway. Um, yeah, we were just throwing names at each other, but for some reason I didn't think Brayden Yager was still on our radar, on the Penguins' radar, because yeah, they had that early dinner with him at the combine. Um, I saw a couple earlier reports that there was just a lot of interest in him around the combine a little shortly after, but then the name just kind of went cold for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone kept putting up Zach Benson, Axel Sandin Pellikka from Sweden. Sweden.
Yes.
Uh, Everyone just kept kind of throwing up these other names that might have more to offer sooner, might have uh, higher upsides, uh, for longer runs, however it may be. We don't know. Everyone is obviously Magic Beans. You don't know where you're getting.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of just forgot the name existed, and then Kyle Dubas said it, and I went, "Oh yeah, yep, that one, that would have been the one." I would have said not ages ago, but earlier in the month, whenever they took him out to dinner, there was earlier reports of just a ton of liking for him, and it just makes a lot of sense too. He's a good pick. He's not going to make an impact right away. I mean, at 14, nobody is. The only people that might make impacts from this draft right away are, excuse me, Connor Bedard and Adam Fantilli. I don't see it going past those two for right now.
Yeah, the Ducks usually don't rush their guys. I was going to say Leo Carlson as well, but the Ducks don't rush their prospects at all.
And they also reached for him. So who knows? In a normal draft, and who knows exactly what goes on with Matvei Michkov. We'll get into those in a little bit. But in a normal draft, those three names, or those two names outside of Bedard, Fantilli, and Michkov could have been number ones. So deep draft, and to the point where Brayden Yager maybe would have been a top 10 pick. Who knows? Sure, it was 14, so it was close, but I like the selection. I like the choice. And, Jacob Pontori listed him as a Jordan Eberle type,
Hmm.
which you have to like if you're a Penguin fan. That man loves scoring against us. So now how will we get our
Yeah.
own type of his player that can score for us?
Yeah, if
He
he's
might
the Jordan
project out to be a
Eberle type.
bottom six guy, but it's still solid.
Yeah, if he's the Jordan Eberle type, that means if he would have been drafted anywhere else, he would have been a name vastly known in Pittsburgh because he probably would have killed us every time that he played us.
Yeah.
But my initial thoughts in that situation, and I believed it wholeheartedly all of yesterday, I really thought that Kyle Dubas was going to trade down. And I think that the way it shaped up and the way it played out going through 13 and leading up to 14 probably still should have traded down. But here's the thing, nobody was trading picks.
Nobody.
Nobody was trading picks. And in order to trade down, you need to have somebody who's interested in trading up and also giving away more picks in order to do so. That was the first time since 2007 that there were no trades in the first round of the NHL draft. I would have also liked maybe, I might have liked also Axine Sandin Pellikka. You mentioned him. I'm fine with not going defense because the Penguins addressed a little bit of defensive prospect depth last year with Owen Pickering. So I'm fine with them not going defense. I kind of wanted a forward, but Gabe Perreault is the name that you mentioned right before they went up to make the selection. It's a name that
Yep.
I would have liked to see. He was the second highest scorer in the entire draft last season. But here's at the end of the day, we're not going to know for 3 years.
No.
You're projecting and you're trying to pick out which 18-year-old is going to be the best when they turn 21, 22 years old. I don't know what Brayden Yager is going to be. I'm not going to bash the kid that's 18 years old because it's not the name that I expected to hear. But, my initial thoughts, a little bit of disappointment, but at the same time, I'm not going to cry over spilt milk with this because it's the NHL draft. We'll see how he continues to progress, and we're all going to be Moose Jaw Warriors fans next season as we watch Brayden Yager hopefully make a run to the Memorial Cup, maybe, hopefully make it onto the Team Canada for World Juniors, get to watch him in that tournament since the Penguins haven't really had any representatives in that tournament for a long time. And he's a player that does bring a little bit of excitement to his game. I mean, he's potentially the owner of a very elite shot. I saw Jesse Marshall of The Athletic said probably one of the top 5 shots in this NHL draft. But the problem was he didn't use it all that much last year. I saw a lot of other people saying, oh, his goal scoring numbers dropped from 34 to 28 in his rookie year to his second year. But I also saw a lot of people say that's because he was working on his two-way game. He was trying to become better in the defensive zone. He was trying to become more of a playmaker. He was trying to become more than just a one-trick pony with the shot. It's good to have that. Now he worked on it. He's become more of a full player heading into the draft. Now that he's in the Penguins organization, I'd love to see him lean back in next season into being that sniper type for the Moose Jaw Warriors and see those goal numbers progress even higher.
Yeah, it's the goals took a step back, but it took a step forward. His total points. He became a playmaker a little bit
Yep.
more.
And it was more commensurate here. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but he went from 34 goals to 28, which was a 6-goal drop, but he also went from 59 points to 78. So he gained 19 points in the season. So, yes, exactly what you're saying there. Sorry, continue.
You're good. That's a huge jump. That is a positive jump, especially considering you were CHL Rookie of the Year, the year you put up the lower numbers, and you put up more. Yeah, that's called net positive, guys. Yeah, sure, the scoring numbers are down, but you know what? 6 goals in the WHLs, it's a couple really, because you do have to take league into account for that sort of thing, but it's a couple of goals here and there, and regardless, it's a net positive. He is improving. He immediately fires up the ranks of the Penguins prospect pool to 1, maybe 2, immediately, along with Owen Pickering.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really a 2-horse race in that aspect.
Yeah, and here's the thing. We are talking about players and guys that make their impacts in 3 years. Who knows what our prospects pool looks like in 3 years? Who knows we have to consider right now one of our top prospects is Valtteri Puustinen. He was a 7th round pick. Who knows? In 3 years, one of our top prospects might be getting chosen today. Later today. Much later today. You don't know. We have 5 picks remaining. Who knows where those 5 go? Who knows if we get a few more out of that? Who knows if we get a big player out of that, by the way? Apparently, today's not supposed to be as calm trade-wise. So, we'll see where things end up. Right now, we got Brayden Yager, who immediately rockets to the top of our prospect pool. and will be a solid player in the future. And you know, it's hard to win now and build for the future. But so far, Kyle Dubas is in one day, in a matter of a couple of hours, said here are the first steps in both of those, and you can't be mad at that. So now it's a matter of adding to the prospect pool and hoping these guys develop properly because some of our former top prospects just taking some steps back.
Yeah, and the other thing that I'll mention about Yager is the one thing that obviously you're mentioning Sam Poulin and Nathan Legare. Not as much Poulin because he didn't really
Yeah.
play a lot last season. But the one key difference between Poulin and Yager is, first of all, Poulin was in the 20s and Yager is a top 15 draft pick. But also, Yager is a much better skater. He already
Hmm.
has that with him. The thing with Poulin was he's a big body. He has the potential, he's a little bit of issues with skating, but he's a great, great goal scoring tendencies. Yager has the goal scoring tendencies and has the skating and has the ability to play in both zones. The only question with him is going to be size. Obviously, he's 18. He's going to have to fill out a lot more to get to the NHL. And the other thing that I heard a couple of people mentioning last night is he going to be a center or is he going to have to move to wing by the time he gets to the NHL level? In my opinion, even if that's the case, going from center to wing is an easier transition than going from wing to center when it comes to encompassing responsibilities. So if he's able to play as a center throughout juniors and then you shift him over to the wing at Wilkes-Barre, kind of the inverse of what you saw from Sam Poulin, who was a winger in juniors and then shifted to being a center in Wilkes-Barre, then you're fine. Because look,
Hmm.
Penguins organizationally, Jake Gensel was a center in the minors. He's now the best left winger on the team
Yep.
and quickly jumping up the ranks as the best winger in the team's history. Now there's a lot to go there because there's a lot of great wingers in the Pittsburgh Penguins history, but you get what I'm saying. The kid has a lot of skill, a lot of potential, and I'm not sure where Owen Pickering is going to go this season. I know he signed his ELC. I'm not sure if he's going to head back to the Swift Current Broncos, but if he does, we'll be circling Moose Jaw Warriors versus Swift Current Broncos games every single time to watch Pickering versus Yager.
That could be a ton of fun. And I mean, Pickering's coming to the development camp, right?
I believe he was on the roster. Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head, but
Can't remember off the top either. But
I'll try to find it.
well, regardless, this is it's steps one. Steps 1 and 2. Draft camp. Here we go. The ride is on. Time to really start proving that you have what it takes. And I think we all believe Brayden Yager can do it. And it's a good pick. I mean, the top pick would have been Zach Benson probably. Maybe
Yeah,
second. Maybe
a lot of
second
people
would have
love
been
him.
Perot. So you went with third choice, maybe fourth, maybe off your board. But you know what? This draft was so deep that um they weren't gonna miss unless Kyle Dubas just for a minute there lost his mind like Carey Price did. He wasn't going to miss on the draft pick. Brayden Yeager's a hit. Anyone else would have been as well. So it's and almost Pekka Rinne. Almost. So
Somebody said Pekka Rinne was literally just making fun of Carey Price, and I'm like, I'm not quite sure about that, but okay.
I don't know. I don't know what those two if those two have a friendship that's like that. But the Carey Price thing, oh man, that was rough. But that's not what we're here to talk about. Yeah, it's a good choice. Kyle Dubas wasn't going to strike out on the first round pick had he kept it. And like we've been saying for a while now, no matter what you do with it, trade it for another pick somewhere, trade it for cap relief to lose a contract, trade it for NHL ready player, or keep it and take the pick. They were all good choices.
Hmm. And I think when you put together the fact that he kept the pick, he took somebody with high upside, he took somebody with a lot of skill on the offensive side, he filled probably one of the biggest holes, which is organizational depth at center.
Mhm.
And he also addressed the current team literally hours before with a trade that he basically got a 25 goal scorer for nothing for
Yeah.
cap space. That's what he paid. He paid the cap space at $5 million. It was a good day for Kyle Dubas. Now, again, how is it going to play out? We have to wait and see. But early returns are positive on both the Reilly Smith trade as well as the selection of Brayden Yager. But we're going to take a quick break. Oh, by the way, before we go, We put out a poll. Want to make sure we keep giving voice to the listeners of the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much, of course, for responding and interacting with us on social media, as well as our YouTube channel at Inside the Penguins. Our listeners' opinion poll: are you happy with the Penguins' 14th overall selection of Brayden Yager? 67% say yes. 33% say no. I would like to know the other opinion of the 33% that said no. I still said yes. I like the pick. Would I have liked him to trade back, maybe get a couple more assets, maybe a pick here early on day 2? Yes. But again, read the room. Nobody made any trades yesterday, but 67% also say yes. So far, the success rate of Kyle Dubas is pretty high on his first 3 moves made. Valtteri Puustinen was the first one.
Yeah.
Reilly, Smith, and Brayden Yager. That's what he's got so far. Plenty more to come over the next couple of days. But we're going to take a quick break. When we return, the entire Metropolitan Division, they had themselves a day at the NHL draft. We'll talk about that, and we'll finish off with a listener question. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Tip of the Ice-Burgh podcast, brought to you by Inside the Penguins, an affiliate of the Hockey News. I'm Nick Brlansky. That's Nick Horwat. The NHL draft continues here in a couple of hours, but the first round is in the books. And boy, oh boy, if the Metropolitan Division, who I think we could both agree is probably the most competitive division in the entire National Hockey League from top to bottom, and always usually is, a lot of the other teams hit it out of the park. The New Jersey Devils did not have a pick. We talked about the Pittsburgh Penguins potentially getting a really good player in Brayden Yager. Just have to see. Obviously, with all of these guys, you have to see how they progress. But 4 other teams in the Metro had really good first rounds. I don't think the Islanders selected in the first round either yesterday. The Carolina Hurricanes picked, I think, 30th. We're not going to talk about their selection. But Columbus takes Adam Fantilli at 3rd overall from Michigan. Philly gets probably the second best player in the draft in Matvei Michkov out of the KHL. The Capitals get what a lot of people were saying is Tom Wilson Jr., okay, just because he's big and has a chiseled chin. Okay, fine, I guess. Ryan Leonard from the United States National Team Development Program. And the Rangers got a player that both of us liked about 9 picks after the Pittsburgh Penguins went, in Gabriel Perreault from the USA National Team Development Program. You look around the Metro and you just say, there's a lot of good hockey minds in the Metro, and you hate to do it, but you have to give credit to Daniel Briere and Keith Jones being able to get Matvei Michkov at 8th overall.
John Buchagras, by the way, before we continue, John Buchagras said Daniel Briere looks like
bad.
Oh, I like Johnny, but he said that Daniel Briere looks like young Paul McCartney, and I cannot unsee it now.
Okay, that one was pretty spot on, but I thought some of the things Buchagras was saying, I'm like, you don't have to sound like an idiot, right?
Nah.
Like he said about Connor Bedard, he said, "Oh, we saw Austin Matthews score 40 goals in his rookie season. I would not be surprised to see Connor Bedard do the same thing." I'm like, are you really going to come out and say 40 goals? Do you understand how incredible it was to see Austin Matthews score 40 goals at 18 years old? I get Connor Bedard is praised as this generational talent. You know who else didn't score 40 goals in their rookie season? Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby. Did Alex Ovechkin? I think Alex Ovechkin might have.
Probably.
I'm going to look that up, but still, like, comments like that. And then he made another comment later in the draft where I was just like, these kids are 18 years old and you're making it seem like you're comparing them to these feats in their rookie years at 18 that are just like, oh yeah, that'll be easy for them. It's like, really? Like 40 goals is going to be easy for Connor Bedard playing on a team that is what, Taylor Hall and a bunch of nobodies? Like
Nick Foligno, I mean, I never know.
Okay, the carcass of Nick Foligno at this point. Yeah. Yes, sure. But like, I get it. He's great. And could he score 40 goals in his rookie season? Yeah, he could. I'm not going to say he can't. But saying, I wouldn't be shocked. It's probably likely to happen. Like, come on now, Buchagras. Like, let's not make stupid, asinine comments. And the whole presentation I thought was rough from ESPN's standpoint, which is why I probably should have watched it on Sportsnet somehow.
It usually is from ESPN. Also, in case you're curious, Alex Ovechkin, 52 in his rookie season.
Okay, yeah. Greatest goal scorer of all time, scored 52.
Just at the age of 20.
Austin Matthews scored 40.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, 36 really. He put up 4 of those in his first game. Let's just no,
Okay,
it's
well, I'm not gonna deduct points from him because he scored 4 in his NHL debut at 18 years old. But,
no.
point
Back
stands, I
to
guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and back to the Metropolitan at the 2023 NHL draft and not ages ago. Yeah, the Metro is going to be a gauntlet in a couple of seasons, much like it is already. It's just
Mhm.
only going to get far superior. Matvei Michkov sliding to 7. Honestly, just the biggest middle finger to Washington. Also, you don't have to work because you're a team that's not going to need them right away. You're the Philadelphia Flyers. You're actually probably going to add another phenomenal prospect next season uh, at the draft. And not only did they get great talent in Michkov, and they can wait the 3 years. They have no
Yeah.
problem waiting the full 3 years. Don't have to worry about exiling him and bring him over sooner. You get great talent, and and he doesn't go to Washington. Win-win in Philly on Philly's part. Way to go. I don't know much about the Ryan Leonard. I don't know much about him,
Mhm.
so we'll wait to see what happens there. Apparently, a lot of people seem to think highly of him. And then Adam Fantilli, like I said before, could have been a number 1 overall pick in this draft or in any draft. So the Metro got scarier. The Metro got way scarier. And if I'm not mistaken, the other Flyers pick from the draft, I forget who it was now, from the first round. Oh, yeah, Radek Bonk's son. It's a namesake. The Metro got scary.
Yeah, the Metro definitely had a good day in day 1, and honestly, the whole Philly getting Michkov and also screwing over the Capitals, 2 things. 1, Caps, if you wanted them, you probably should have jumped Philly. You knew that was gonna happen. And 2, what were the Arizona Coyotes doing? What I looked at that, I was like, "Okay, they should take Michkov because the same reasons you just mentioned for Philly." I'm like,
Yeah.
"They're not gonna be good in the next 3 years." Shoot, they're homeless for the next 3 years, basically. So, it doesn't matter if Michkov is over here, but also, like, you're hearing rumors. I saw that Elliot Friedman put out there that Philly closed down their practice facility on Sunday to meet with Matvei Michkov, and he told him that he wants to like there's stuff like that, a little bit of
Mhm.
Yagerism in that. So I don't know what the scenario was, but and again, I don't know how these kids are going to play out. Like I don't know how the only person that you could probably project is going to be a star in the NHL is Connor Bedard because he is that good. He is transcendent. He is generational. Everybody else, you don't know. You can say you know. I
Yeah.
don't know. Like I'm going off of what I've read, what I've watched, and forming an opinion that way. But at the end of the day, in 2 to 3 years, most of these players are going to be 100% different players. Like there
Oh,
might
yeah.
be the remnants of where they were. This is the base model that you're buying right now if you're a team at the NHL draft. The additions and the changes that you make to them throughout their development is going to make them into an entirely different player.
You still got to wait for all those DLC packs to come out for these guys. It's
Exactly.
exactly what it is. You know what you're getting as a young prospect. These guys are 17, 18 years old, um, and still have to A, turn into adults,
Yeah.
and B, for most of them, finish off some junior careers, finish off some international careers. And
Mhm.
you have a lot of growing left to do with these guys. And it just there's some that are closer to the NHL already. Like we said, Connor Bedard, maybe Adam Fantilli. By the way, I keep forgetting that Mike Babcock's about to be Adam Fantilli's coach. Yikes.
Think about the Metro, Mike Babcock, John Tortorella, and, not Alain Vigneault. Who's in New York? They're a weird rotating door of coaches right now.
Laviolette.
Peter Laviolette.
Yeah.
Those 3 coaches in the Metropolitan Division, and Keith
Lou,
Jones is the head of the Philadelphia Flyers.
Lou Lamoriello's upstairs with the Islanders. The Metro is a gauntlet of skill and then boneheadedness sometimes. Just
Old-time hockey.
yep. It's
Old-time hockey.
It's what an incredible division. It's what an so the personalities and the names that we just continue to throw around. I mean, there's those names we just said, yet get to even mention old guys like Crosby, Malkin, Ovechkin. Uh, who else is around? Claude Giroux's not here anymore. Don't have to worry about him.
Mhm.
Uh,
Panarin's
who
getting
else?
old.
Who? Panarin? Hmm.
Panarin's getting a little older.
Well, I mean, he was old.
Backstrom's over in Washington
Yeah,
still.
Panarin was old
Jordan
when he was a
Staal
rookie.
just signed
So
an extension down in Carolina.
yeah, so that's What a weird division that's somehow still so good,
Mm-hmm.
and it's only going to get better. These guys are going to be leading this charge. And again, we have 6 more rounds of a draft.
Yeah.
I don't know who's still on the board. That's a question for Jacob Panturi. Who I need to text and see who's left on the board. But those guys too can just absolutely can grow into some of the best prospects this league has seen. Because, like I said, who's the Penguins? I mean, sure, the Penguins don't have a great prospect pool, and it sucks trying to dig into ours and talk about it highly. But we're happy with what we have. We think that the guys that we have down there can do something. Right now, one of our top prospects is a 7th round pick. Don't count anyone out just yet.
Yeah. And here's the thing. You talk about the Penguins prospect pool and the state of the Penguins prospect pool. The last Penguins draft pick, this was out from Bob Grove yesterday, Pens historian, great follow on Twitter. The last Pittsburgh Penguins prospect to be drafted and play more than 6 games for the Penguins at the NHL level is Dom Simone. I believe he was drafted in 2016. So there is that. 6 games, more than 6 games. That's not a high mark to catch.
Nope.
So, honestly, next year, maybe Sam Poulin breaks that. Hopefully, Sam Poulin gets past. He played, 4? So he would need to play at least 2 games this next season or something around that.
Played 3.
Regardless. The last thing I'll say on the draft before we move over to our listener question, Brayden Yager was born in 2005. That's it. That's the statement there. Wow. He was born. Most of these guys were born in the year Sidney Crosby was drafted, and they're all saying that their favorite player was Sidney Crosby.
Brayden Yager models his game after Sidney Crosby. He's said a couple of times.
Well, he said at the combine, Nathan McKinnon's his favorite player. And then he said, after being drafted by the Penguins, I model my game after Sidney Crosby. Which, hey, listen, going to the 2 best friends is never a bad thing.
Exactly. Especially whenever make that on that. It's especially whenever you might have Crosby as your teammate one day. It's
potentially, yes.
Yeah, sure, maybe he just said it, but at the same time, who didn't model their game after Sidney Crosby?
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Let's just be honest here. Who didn't do that? And I mean, Connor Bedard might make his NHL debut against Crosby, who, even Connor Bedard said Crosby was my idol growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Brayden Yager modeled his game after Crosby. Everyone's going to come back to this unless you're a goal scorer and then you say Ovechkin. In a few years' time, like 2 or 3, we're going to get the guys that say, watched a lot of McDavid, watched a lot of Draisaitl. Maybe in a couple more years' time we get Draisaitl, but a lot of McDavids. Some Matthews will get thrown in there. Yeah. So
somebody said Matthews this season too. I was like, oh,
that's a hockey nerd right there.
I think it was Brayden Yager said, I watched a lot of Austin Matthews.
Yeah, who hasn't really?
Hey. But again, at the end of the day, it's the NHL draft. It's funny money until you get to about, at this stage, 2027, 2028. So we'll see how Brayden Yager continues to progress. We'll see if he ends up joining the Pittsburgh Penguins for prospect development camp over this weekend. I would assume he does. By the way, I don't remember if I said it, but Owen Pickering will be there this weekend for prospect development camp. But let's get to our listener question of the day. This one comes to us from Eli Welsh on Twitter. Thank you for submitting these questions, Eli. And like we said, if you want a question, or if you have a question you want it answered on the show, just DM at Ice-Burgh Podcast on Twitter. But he asks a 2-part question here. The first one, I think we both have a very easy answer for this one, and it's something that everybody has the same answer for, except for the people that voted. Do you think Evgeny Malkin belongs in the top 100 of all time in the NHL? On 3, let's answer this question. 1, 2, 3. Yes. Yes.
Of course.
100%.
I think we thought it when the list came out too. It's
oh yeah. Everybody was like, you're missing somebody.
Yep. I mean, that list missed a couple of people, but
yeah,
that was one of the big ones. That was one of the big ones. And I think even in just the years following, he's proven why he should have been. And sure, things kind of fade away. He's dropped off into one of the more underrated players pretty quickly. If you can remember last season, I think it was NHL Network did their like top 100 players in the league or whatever it was. Malkin was fairly low.
He was like 50th or something like that.
Yeah, we can all remember the days when Malkin was consistently in the top 10.
Yeah.
Making the Penguins look real good. Crosby and Malkin in the top 10 of that kind of list. I mean, Sure, Malkin doesn't put up the same kind of numbers that he used to and that the rest of the league now does,
Mhm.
but there's no denying what he's done for his career, done for the team, done for sport of hockey. And hey, you know what? He was deserving of NHL 100 list then, still deserving of it now. Yeah, but easily a sure shot Hall of Famer.
Yeah, and that's the next question that Eli asks. Do you think Malkin and Chris Letang belong in the Hockey Hall of Fame? Malkin, I think it's the same thing that we just said with the top 100. Yes, probably. Probably
Mhm.
first ballot, in my opinion, for Evgeny Malkin.
Yeah, likely.
And then Chris Letang. We did have this conversation whenever Tom Barrasso got elected to the Hall of Fame. I believe it was late last week. But Chris Letang, you say yes, right? That's
Yes.
where you stand on it?
Yeah, for sure.
I would say I give him, as of this moment, and obviously he hopes his career goes another 5 years because that's how long his contract is. I give him at this moment a 60-40 chance of making the Hockey Hall of Fame.
I like those
That's where
odds.
I stand on it.
Yeah.
I do think that. Sorry, go ahead.
I would push it to 80-20, but that's just my eye. Those are my eyes.
Yeah, and that's fair. It's going to take, regardless if he gets in, it's not going to be first ballot. It's probably not going to be in the first couple of years of eligibility. It might be like you saw this year, and it might be 15 years down the road. But I don't know. I do think that Chris Letang has certainly put up a resume that deserves recognition. Do
Mhm.
I think it's Hockey Hall of Fame worthy? That remains to be seen. I think at this moment, leaning, like I said, 60-40, leaning more towards yes, he's a Hockey Hall of Famer than no, he's not. If the Penguins, do the Penguins have a Pittsburgh Penguins Hall of Fame? I don't believe they do.
A Ring of Honor. I think they have a
A
certain
Ring of
Hall of
Honor,
Fame.
but yeah,
I
but
thought
they
they
don't have
did.
like like who is it? The Steelers have literally like a Hall of Fame that they induct people into every single year.
Oh yeah, and it's if they do, it's definitely not like an annual thing where they're like,
Yeah.
"Hey, here's some names we're putting in." Even the Pirates started doing it. I am trying to remember what the Penguins do,
Mhm.
but if they do, it's nothing huge. Um,
Regardless, he's a
yeah,
Pittsburgh Penguins Hall of Famer. That's for certain.
for sure. Oh, absolutely. Without that, there's no question about that for certain.
Mhm.
But it is harder to break into the overall Hockey Hall of Fame, but um yeah. Sorry, I was looking
Yeah.
for the answer on the Penguins Hall of Fame thing. I just don't see anything yet, but
They don't it's not as prevalent to them as you would expect it to be because the Penguins are very in tone with their tradition, with their history. So, you know, he is, whether there's one or not, and again, let us know in the comments, let us know on Twitter. I can't think of it as of right now. It's not really prevalent. It's not something they publicize as much as, say, the Steelers, say the Pirates do. But if there's a Penguins Hall of Fame, he's in it, regardless.
here you go.
Hockey Hall of Fame, 60-40.
Yeah, here you go. There on Wikipedia you can find a list of Penguins Hall of Famers, just like Penguins Hall of Fame is what it says. Full of guys like Rick Kehoe, Silaps, Jack
Is
Reilly, the
that
old
just the
GM.
Penguins that are in the Hockey Hall of Fame?
No, because I don't
Oh,
believe
okay.
Rick Kehoe is in the Hall of Fame. So
Okay.
there's the easy nomination there. So, inducted in 2007. That's why we haven't touched it since 2007. That could do it.
Yeah,
That
they
could
just
do it.
left it. They left it at Mellon Arena. Is that what they did?
Well, that's part of this little team awards thing, the Ring of Honor, which I do remember seeing across the top of the Mellon Arena. It was a big, like, collage of some of the greatest players in Penguins history, and I vaguely remember the Penguins Hall of Fame being a thing. But
Bring it
clearly,
back. Bring
yeah,
it back.
they need to get back to it in some sort of way because even before the 2007 induction of Paul Coffey and Frank yeah, that's a very Italian name, of a locker room guy who did it for like 40 years. I'm
Yeah.
sure everyone will cook me for not knowing the last name. It was rare they touched it. It was like 2003, they put in a couple people, 2007, two more, and then that was it. So
Hmm.
if they get back to that, that'd be cool. And we'll just go from there. But for now, absolutely, they're Penguins Hall of Famers. They're going to get their numbers retired.
Oh yeah. Let's start the charge now. Bring back the Penguins Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a hard thing to get done.
Bring me a Pittsburgh Sports Hall of Fame, and not one that's just the Heinz History Center.
I was about to say, what, you don't like the Heinz History Center?
Give me a real one, like with actual plaques and
Ooh.
names and faces and stuff.
I still to this day, and I understand why they didn't do it, obviously, but I would have loved the Mellon Arena be turned into a museum.
That'd have been cool.
Again, that's a very big museum, but
Yeah.
I would have loved that. I always wanted that to happen when I was like younger. Obviously, you understand why they didn't. City planning is something that I was not thinking about when I was 13 years old, but I
Of
was
course not.
very upset when the Mellon Arena was destroyed. But regardless, that's gonna do it for this episode of the Tip of the Iceberg. Thank you to Eli Welsh for his questions, and like we mentioned, if you want to have your question answered on the show, just direct message us. I was about to say email us. Direct message us at Ice-Burgh Podcast on Twitter. But that's it for this one. Day 2 of the NHL draft begins in just about an hour and a half. So I'm going to grab my popcorn, and I'm probably not going to sit down and watch it because I have work, unfortunately. But I'll keep my eye on Twitter as will everybody else, and we will see you guys next time.